Good evening, folks. This is Deb Delapanner, and this is a short take. You know, I don't spend a lot of time watching Donald Trump at his rallies, okay? All that stuff's on YouTube. You can go out there and watch it, and I never do. But today I did watch a little bit of what went on in Iowa, because every now and again I pay attention to Morning Joe, and he's insistent that Donald Trump just doesn't look well and is not acting well. And I can't tell whether he is or not, because from my perspective, Donald Trump is a big piece of shit and he never acts well, okay? But in deference to Morning Joe, I went and looked at it, and honestly, he looks like a man on the verge. Maybe all this stuff is finally getting to him, but there's something I do know, that nothing that comes out of his mouth is normal, and nothing that comes out of his mouth should be normalized. And we spend an awful lot of time normalizing the shit that Donald Trump says. The media virtually ignores all of the violent rhetoric that comes out of his mouth. And, you know, they find him entertaining. And that's not the role of the media, is to find a traitorous piece of garbage entertaining. It's their job to expose him and call him out and play watchdog. They did that with Nixon. And I'm going to go through a few things here. I spent significant time on this afternoon. So when Mark Milley called China after the January 6th insurrection, because China was convinced we were going to attack them, that this was a diversion because we were going to attack them, he called them to assuage their fears. And he called them with the full agreement of Trump's staff. And Donald Trump's reaction to that phone call was that it was, quote, an act so egregious that in times gone by, the punishment would have been death. Name another president that has called for the death penalty of the Joint Chiefs. You know, this stuff just isn't okay, right? And it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. At a 2018 campaign rally, he complimented the governor of Montana, who at the time was Greg Gianforte, a Republican, of course. He complimented him for assaulting a reporter. And Trump said, any guy that can do a body slam, he's my type. So now I guess, you know, beating the shit out of reporters is okay. You know, when there were protests in the streets of Minneapolis after the killing of George Floyd, Donald Trump tweeted, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. And then he tweeted that he was going to use the military on civilians, namely Black Lives Matter civilians. And this is his statement. If a city or state refuses to take the actions necessary to protect and defend the life and property of its residents, then I will deploy the United States military and forcibly solve the problem for them. Remember Tiananmen Square? Donald Trump, by the way, has threatened to call out the military the day he wins the election. Don't do anything but take him at his word. Because I'm going to tell you, if he is returned to office, he's not leaving. I don't know what it's going to take for you guys to see it, but we all see it here, okay? Now, at the rally preceding the January 6th insurrection, he instructed his minions to, quote, walk down to the Capitol. And then he added, quote, you'll never take our country back with weakness, end quote. He also suggested we keep migrants away from the southern border of the United States using a water-filled trench with snakes or alligators and shooting migrants in the legs to, quote, slow them down. You know, that's the GOP's immigration plan. And then Donald Trump actually made this statement. He actually said, quote, "I think my rhetoric brings people together." He's right, brings all the wrong people together, all the dregs of the fucking human race, all of the low lives. Okay? In 54 cases that were looked at by the newspaper, 54 cases of Trump followers who have committed violence, there is a link to Donald Trump in 54 cases. Okay? Now, these are links to Donald Trump in court documents and police statements that are punishable under perjury. These are documents. They're not made up. These are people who have said that they did it because Donald Trump told me to, or Donald Trump's speech inspired me, or whatever. Okay? These are people who are the perpetrators saying this. So, yeah, he's right. He does bring people together. He brings people together in hatred. That's what he does. And then he also, you will remember, this was an infamous one. He threatened Alvin Bragg with that picture of himself on Truth Social holding a baseball bat with Alvin Bragg right next to him in a separate photo. You know, we know it was a separate photo. He wasn't in the same room with Alvin Bragg, but we definitely know what he meant, you know, because as part of that tweet, he also said that there would be, quote, potential death and destruction around the country if he was indicted. And then he also went after Letitia James. And he said, when he was asked about the indictments, when she went after him, he said, quote, "I don't think the people of this country are going to stand for it. This is a disgrace. And you ought to go after this attorney general." Now, he didn't call for anyone to be beaten up or killed, but we all know what he meant, okay? Donald Trump always says what he means. I'd also like to point out that there is a co-defendant in Georgia, just so everyone understands that this guy surrounds himself, and all of these people who pay him homage, all of these people who do his deeds are all dirtbags. There is this woman named Trevian Kutti. She is the former publicist for both Kanye West and R. Kelly. And any woman who could be a publicist for a rapist like R. Kelly and for an anti-Semite like Kanye West is, you know, the dregs of the universe from my perspective. But she is actually indicted in Georgia for compelling false statements from a Georgia election official, and that Georgia election official happens to be Ruby Freeman. And you will remember Ruby Freeman from the J6 meetings. But she is now out on probation, parole, waiting her trial. And there are conditions to that parole, which I believe that she just violated on Instagram, because she was talking about Ruby Freeman on Instagram, the woman she is indicted for compelling false statements from. She said of Ruby Freeman, "There's a woman sitting somewhere who knows that I'm going to fuck her whole life up when this is done." These people, my friends, are not people that you should revel in. These are not people who the president of the United States should be hanging around with. The president of the United States shouldn't be sharing a dinner table at Mar-a-Lago with Nicholas Fuentes, a white supremacist, an anti-Semite, and Kanye West, a total fucking lunatic, and an anti-Semite, I might add. A black man. Just like Trevian Kutti here is a black woman. What are they thinking? Getting on their knees to a man like Donald Trump, who has absolutely no respect for people of color, unless they have, you know, something that he can gain from them. None of this is normal, folks. And everybody's treating it just like it is, including the voters. And that's got to stop. I'll talk to you all later.